Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our discussion with Sonia Ramirez.
So you're being resourceful.
So I'm being resourceful. I'm
talked
finding
to these
people
two.
who are already doing this. And they
Mhm.
said, well, we do a webinar and we put it on, I think it was fractional at the time. There was like a crowdfunding source that you could go to. And they said, but you have such a great network. Why don't you just do the webinar? And I said, okay. And they said, we have a template. Do you want us to send you the template? I'm like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, please.
Right?
Yeah,
And
please.
so-
Yeah. Send that over.
yeah. And so they were amazing. They shared that with me. They go, here's the template, right? I basically tweaked some stuff in the template with the new deal, broke down the new deal, and then I decided to put it on my social media that I was going to do a webinar, right? I think I had 40, 50 people signed up for it. And I was like,
that's
oh
good.
my gosh, this is amazing, right? I do it for like an hour, which again was way too long, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
I'm going into this. I'm so excited about it, right? I love talking deals. So I'm breaking down why I'm doing this, how I'm doing this. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, this was so great. I learned so much. And it was pretty much all wholesalers, agents. And
no one with
flippers.
money.
Nobody with money. And I was so disheartened. I was like, we finished the webinar and I'm like, that was so great. And I spoke to another very successful flipper like a week later. And I'm like, his name is Eric. And I said, Eric, nobody is contacting me. Like I've been following up with people and I'm asking if they want to invest. And I haven't, and he's like, so you presented to a bunch of broke people. He was like, that love you and support you and want to learn from you, but they don't have any money to invest. I don't like, and I was like, I did not think about it. I thought I was doing something, right? I was like, 50 people on my webinar. Look at this.
I'm winning.
I'm winning. I was so disheartened. I didn't even know what to do after that. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
I just love failure is so part of this business, right?
Oh my God, I'm telling you.
Like when we flop, but then you have to be resourceful again and like, what do I do next year? I got to keep moving, pivot.
And I just like, how did I not think about that, right? I was so excited about the numbers that I was getting that did not think about, do these people even have money to invest? I had no idea, right? And again, I was so long-winded. I had, but it goes back to like, you can't say the wrong things to the right person.
Yeah.
Right? Those were just not the right people. Didn't make a difference what I would have said to them
No,
at that time.
they didn't have money.
That they had 40% return on their money and they still wouldn't have given it to me.
They could because they didn't have it.
Right?
Yeah. But you had to do that to get to where you were. Do you think?
I had to learn completely.
Because then you were like, oh, I need to shorten it and I need to get a different audience.
It was completely light bulb moment where I went, oh, I'm talking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is hitting in an educational space where people are like, oh my gosh, I learned so much. Well, that's great. That gets me exposure. That gets me more leads. That gets me credibility. That does not get me money. That does not get me private funds.
Yeah.
And so I changed the way that I was doing that. I shortened everything up. I kind of started tightening it up. And it's funny because I didn't meet Amy Majori until October of 2024, but I had been watching her on social media. And the 13-word pitch.
Yeah. You got to have it down.
I help my investors earn double-digit returns backed by real estate. I started adding that to everything. So it was, oh, Sonia, what do you do? I'm a real estate developer. Oh, and I help my investors earn double-digit returns backed by real estate. Really? And every conversation. So I start going out. I said, I need to meet more high net worth individuals. So let me go into spaces where they're at. Tech spaces. I start looking at meetups and Eventbrites, and I start looking at where can I go to meet these people.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about God and alignment and the way that things happen. So as I'm going, okay, I understand where I need to be now.
Yeah.
I understand the groups that I need to be, and I'm actively researching how to get there, how to be in those spaces. I don't know if you were familiar with the Aspire.
I went to one of their things. I've been to
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Right? Because Pace was there.
Yeah.
Pace was speaking at it.
I went with Pace.
Oh, okay. So Pace was speaking at that. It had come across my social media and it was like, oh, sounds like a good event. Did not buy a ticket because I was busy trying to finish a flip and try to get it. Well, it was my last flip with my old partner. It had been on the market for months. I was trying to get the dang thing sold so that we could finally just break apart and
we're done. Yeah.
Right. So I'm trying to get that thing sold. It's in mid city. And my lender, my private money lender, or my hard money lender, Natalie, she calls me up and she goes, because we had already taken the second property down with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she calls me up and she goes, "Hey, are you going to go to this Aspire event?" And I said, "Oh, I saw it. It sounds great, but I'm busy. I'm busy. I have to do open houses. I got to do this stuff." And she goes, "Look, Sonia, I have an extra ticket. I bought, the certain package that had the extra ticket, and I want you to come with me." And I was like, "Oh, Natalie, I appreciate you thinking about me, but it's just, And she's like, "I'm telling you, get somebody to cover your open houses. I think you need to come to them." And I'm so grateful, like I said, for these moments of alignment and intuition and God going, "You need to go."
Yeah. God spoke to you through her.
Through her.
Mm-hmm.
He used her. And then I think it was like the night before too.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, "She's right. I need to go to this. Keep saying I need to be in these spaces. There's going to be thousands of entrepreneurs there. Like, what am I doing?"
Yeah. Why are you not going to be there?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I call an agent because, again, big network of agents. I call an agent. I say, "Hey, can you cover this open house for me tomorrow?"
Yeah.
For my property. He's like, "Yeah." Well, I was going to go to this Aspire. And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to that too. That's why I needed coverage." And he's like, "But you know what? I will go in the morning. I will go cover the open house and then I'll go back." And he's like, he was just super hungry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
he wanted to do the open house.
Right. He wanted to do the open house because I said, take the leads, whatever you get, walk-ins, it's a great spot. And he was like, "Yeah, I saw your flip." So he goes and does that. Aspire was my game changer because I heard Andrew and Eddie speak.
Oh, they were so good.
They were so good. And I've never seen somebody sell from stage the way Andrew sold from stage.
And it was incredible, right?
People ran. They ran to the tables and like threw their credit cards because they wanted a spot.
They were so compelling.
And I've never seen anybody do that. And the financial IQ part of it, I had no idea with all these self-directeds. I'm like, I've been an entrepreneur at this point, almost 10 years, and I had never set up self-directed. I always had my not even 401 because it was a city plan. It was a CalPERS program. So I never even paid attention to that. And I cashed it out when I left.
Yeah.
So I was like completely clueless to how am I financially
setting up for your retirement.
No clue, because I was in the grind. I was in the hustle, right?
Of the day to day.
It was, how do I make the next deal? How do I make this successful? I'm launching my own company. So how do I do this? But what I realized when I went to that was in March, late March, early April, 2024.
Yeah.
Again, I had 2 properties acquired. I think we had a third one under contract. And even just those 3 properties this year in 2025, when we exit all of them, was going to make the most money I've ever made in a year.
Isn't that incredible?
Isn't that incredible? That's like, again, this is
mind blowing.
Blow my mind.
Pinch me moments.
Yeah. But I realized that I did not know how to deal with that kind of money. And I was like, so when Andrew and Eddie spoke, they really spoke to the destination that I was looking for. I was looking, how do I learn how to deal with my own money? Right?
To be a good steward.
To invest it, to really set myself up and not just grind. And I was like, okay, I need to go to this. So I signed up with everybody else en masse, and I signed up for the 3-day masterclass for both of them, for the real estate and for the wealth. Wealth is first, right?
Yeah.
Money is what's called Money Is. So I go downtown LA. I don't know if you went to the 3-day
I did
class.
not.
Okay, so I go to the 3-day class. A lot of sub 2 students, because a lot of people are there for
yeah.
So a lot of sub 2 students, a lot of people that know me, which was awesome. Actually, people were coming up to me and they were like, "Oh, Sonia." And I was like, "Oh." So they'd either seen me interview, they'd seen me on a social media, or they came to one of my events, and I had no idea who they were. So that was kind of my first taste of like, oh, wow, I'm really starting to
network,
to have a reach beyond who I'm meeting just initially.
Not just the people that you immediately, like I told you, like you got to get out there to have that next layer.
Yeah. And it goes back to having that network of influence as opposed to just your social network, right?
Yeah.
Having that network of influence was that was kind of my first clue that that was starting to happen, was going to these 3-day master classes where I didn't like my networking events that I go for real estate. I like when the sub 2 that we go to, I know I'm going to know the majority of the people in that room.
Yeah.
Right. Because I've been there because they know me. It's like, oh, great.
It's
so
consistent.
I come in and and I walk in and half the room greets me. And that's always really nice. But I realize unless we're doing deals together, right, that it's just nice to have people know you, but that's it. Right. And so I was going into a room that was much bigger with much different people, and a lot of people knowing me was kind of my first inkling of like, oh, wow, I'm doing something right when it comes to the presenting and the social media and the speaking. It was like, okay.
Yeah, your messaging is working.
Messaging is working. I'm starting to see it out there in the world in real time. So that was very cool. I start talking to, obviously, to all these different entrepreneurs about what do I do? Oh, what do you do? I'm a real estate developer. And I get double-digit returns for my investors backed by real estate. And the underlying philosophy for Aspire and for the community as a whole is you need to have financial friends. You need to have people to move money with that have the same values, that align with you, that have a track record, that are going to keep your money safe the same way that you expect them to keep, your money safe. So you have this reciprocal relationship where you keep each other's money safe and you help it grow. It's
called current. Right. You want it to be moving.
Exactly.
You don't want your money to be stagnant. Yeah, and I think that people don't understand that. I think people have a lot of negative thoughts about talking about money, and it
goes to that financial trauma.
Yeah.
Why? Where did that come from? But I know growing up, we didn't talk about money.
Yeah, my parents said money doesn't grow on trees, but it does.
Exactly.
But money does grow on trees. It's paper.
Right? It is. It's and again, I never had the financial IQ and financial education growing up. Yeah. Again, my parents knew what they knew. They worked.
They did the best they can.
They had a retirement.
Yeah.
Right. Because they both worked for bigger companies. That's what they did. In a lot of minority communities, you have what's called like a tanda, which I don't know if this happens in other communities.
No, what's it called?
A tanda or a,
I don't know what that
what's
is.
the other way? And I've seen this across other minority communities, so I know it's not exclusive to us. And it's basically where everybody pools their money and then you lend it out. So let's say you're going to give $10 a week.
Yeah, I think they do that in the Vietnamese culture.
Oh, completely. That's what I'm saying. Every minority.
They even help each other get houses.
Every minority.
Like white people don't do that.
Right.
Yeah, white people. We'd all rather be poor.
And it's a very cash and trust. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So somebody, and my parents would do this. They would be the stewards of the money, right? So they would gather the $10,000, let's say, and then the first 1,000 would go to the number one. Everybody would get numbers.
Yeah.
Get 1 to 10 or whatever it was, however many people were in the group. And the first person would get their money. And then, but it was a savings program.
Yeah. And it helps the other people in the community.
And it was, if you were saving for a quinceañera, if somebody had a big trip coming up, if they had to have the house renovations done, whatever it was, they would pool their money and everybody would pitch in every month or every week. They'd put in their $100 or whatever. And then when their number hit, they would get all of it in one spell swoop, and then they would use it for whatever they have to use it, but they would have to keep paying.
Yeah.
And so it was like a weird savings. So this is how I learned about money. Like I didn't learn about self-directeds and, and investments. And that was not part of my vocabulary growing up.
No, and I'm learning about infinite banking right now.
Right,
and
exactly.
And it's like, I never heard of that
strategies
before in my life. Right. And so I think it's interesting. So this is where, when you go to these networking things and you develop these relationships, this is where you've been able to find more of your private money lenders.
Yeah. So the long-winded answer to
I love it.
Find the private money. Private money was that in that environment, like I said, I realized that I aligned with people that wanted to invest, and I was like, well, I have opportunity, and I'm a skilled operator. I know what I'm doing. I will show you everything. I'm super transparent. You'll see me on social media. You'll see my projects, right?
Yeah, I checked you out.
Right.
Yeah. Well, for real, because I my credibility, right?
Exactly.
Integrity is just so important to me, and just
everybody it should be.
And it's crucial, right?
So I just started talking to everybody who I met and
Mhm.
said, well, if you want an opportunity, I have some.
Mhm.
And so I think I raised maybe 200,000 from those first initial couple of
Meetups.
meetups, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, wow, this is working,
Mhm.
right? And again, I kind of was doing my webinars, still keeping them way too long, and doing those things and then just sending them out. I understood too that I had to leverage technology. So it was like, let me do the webinar once, let me send it out, then let me follow up,
Yeah.
right?
How long do you think a webinar should be?
So it
Mhm.
needs to be concise and you have to be very specific with your language and your messaging.
Mhm.
And the way that you do that is you have to reverse engineer your client's destination. So your avatar, and again, this goes back to what I've learned with Eddie and Andrew, is that whoever your client is, my investor, what do they look like? They are
Mhm.
average 40 to 55 years old. They earn a certain number. You have to know these things, your data
Mhm.
points, right?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, what is it that they're looking for? These are not people who are on their last $10,000 and are looking to get rich, right?
No.
These are people who have a substantial amount of retirement, who have never possibly ever invested,
Right.
right?
Before.
Before,
Mhm.
but understand that they need to start getting this money moving. So
Mhm.
what are they looking for? They're looking for financial efficiency and they're looking for safety.
Mhm.
Those are the two things. So they're looking at how
Efficiency
quick,
and safety.
right? Financial, how
Mhm.
fast can your finances grow and how safe can I do it?
Mhm.
That's what I identified my avatar is looking for. And so
Mhm.
knowing that that's the destination, I had to craft my message where I'm not the hero that comes in and saves them. I am the guide that shows them that this is one way that they can do this. They
With
are
their
the hero.
money.
Yeah, they are the hero in their own story. And I think what salespeople do, and especially in real estate, is that we position ourselves, and all the gurus, most of them do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true, and it's
I'm going to
terrible.
save you.
Yeah.
I'm going to come up here, and if you don't,
Mhm.
purchase my program, you're never going to get there. It's
Mhm.
not about that. We are here as guides. And
Mhm.
if it aligns with you, great. And if it doesn't, all more
Great
power to
too.
you, right?
Great
Because
too.
you're going to need to
Mhm.
find what does. And I took that messaging to heart and I started really whittling down my message and saying, how precise can I get this? Let me go 6 steps to becoming a private money lender. I like the education part of it because I think people appreciate when I break down a deal, but I was doing it for way too long.
Mhm.
So my slides now are,
Mhm.
I try to keep them within 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And with 15 minutes,
Mhm.
I've been able to do 15 to 20, depending on what the deal looks like.
Mhm.
Like I said, the biggest thing was visibility. So as I became a community member, and again, this kind of goes with any community that you decide to become a part of, whether it's a mastermind or it's another networking group, high net worth individuals, is how much are you contributing to the group?
That's the key.
Right? So if I was just
Mhm.
sitting back and going, I need money, it would
Take,
have been
take,
different.
take.
Right.
Mhm.
And so the go-giver mentality is definitely one that you want to be a part of like, what value am I bringing to this community? So I was like, I'm going to break down deals. I'm going to let people see what I'm doing. I'm going to, again, things that I was already doing, but I kind of doubled down on it and was very conscious about it.
Yeah.
And
Intentional.
very intentional. And we have apps for our community.
Apps?
Yeah. So there's
Mhm.
2 different apps for the Aspire community. There's the real estate and the wealth.
Okay.
And I started posting in them. The
Mhm.
same way that I would post content on my social media, I started posting on these apps going, well, if anybody's watching it, great. Hey,
Yeah.
this is how I did a flip. This is why I took it down in this market. This is, all the
Yeah,
different
this is what I'm
things.
doing.
Yeah, all the different
Creating value for them
creating value
and education.
and at the same time saying, and I have deals,
Mhm.
right? I didn't know if anybody was watching that.
Mhm.
On my social media, I'm a fanatic for my analytics. I love watching my analytics to see
Oh, that's so
how
good.
many things hit, how many people are watching, how long they watch. Like I love watching my analytics to see what can I do better, what can I
Right.
tweak.
Mhm.
And but in the apps, there's none of that. There was like
Right.
people liking it, and I had no idea if anybody was viewing them. I had no idea. In June, we go to a mastermind in Salt Lake City. And this is the first event that I'm going to go attend of everybody in the country, not just Los Angeles, right? And I'm like, oh, this is going to be exciting. I'm going to learn so many things, right? Again, I've already started raising some capital. I've started picking up some properties at this point. I think we were 4 properties in now because we had raised that 250,000. And then the 4 days that I'm at Salt Lake City, there's like 600 people from across the country. Like half of them were like, Sonia, I watched your video. A lot of women. a lot of
Women.
that were coming up and saying, I saw your video. Oh my gosh, it's so inspiring. I want to move money with you. I want to move money with you. And I was like, holy shit, it worked. Right. And I just went, okay. And so I sat down with a handful of people in those 4 days and I raised $1 million in 4 days at the mastermind. And I was like, I just raised $1 million in 4 days. It's just like, and it wasn't 4 days. It was months of just posting and being consistent and aligning everything, and messaging. But it was 4 days of people saying, yep,
it condensed it down.
I met you. I trust you. I already feel like I know you. Let's go. Right. And I was just like, and my biggest investor is about almost 700,000 alone over like 2 projects.
That's
and I
incredible.
just went, again, this is a couple that I didn't know
Yeah.
earlier that year, right? I only met them a couple months before.
That's the power of putting them as the hero.
You are the guide.
You're the guide. And I do really believe God will align us. If there's these voices in our head and these opportunities that come and someone calling and saying, hey, come to Aspire. You knew you were looking for that partner. Even though it didn't work out, you learned a lot there. And we learn a lot from things that don't work out too, right? Because now partnerships, I bet you structure them a lot differently up front, right?
Completely.
Yeah. But if we don't take these imperfect actions and start listening to the voices in our head or those thoughts in our head and start stepping into our purpose by rearranging our schedules, and you got to be interruptible. Like you didn't have a free day to go to the Aspire thing. Like you didn't look at your calendar and think, oh yeah, no problem, I'm there, right? Like you had to rearrange your schedule to make that happen, right?
Right.
And
for the following 2 weekends after that.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think that consistency is also being resourceful, being consistent, and trusting the process and not giving up and being resourceful instead of being like, oh, I just can't do this, right? Like the first raise was a disaster, right?
Yeah, it was a disaster.
Right? Like and that's okay. And expect that it's gonna be. I really think people need to understand that it's a bumpy ride, and even I'm in the middle of bumpy. Like I'm trying to figure out what is Colleen Lowe gonna do next. I'm not sure, right?
Right.
And because I don't want to just keep buying single family properties, is what we've been doing, right? I mean, I'm grateful and I'm in the process of getting some more, but it's like, that's not my passion. I mean, I want them because I want my family to each have houses and, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not sure, but I'm listening and paying attention and I know this is part of it, but
everything is part of it. That's the crazy part. And you remember we were talking about the pettiness sometimes can, so
it's a good fuel. It's a good fuel.
So after that first horrible raise, after that first one didn't go well, I actually had somebody from my social media reach out. I won't put them on blast. I won't say
just somebody,
right? Some gentleman that had seen me on social media, had come to one of my events, and he was like, Sonia, I want to partner with you. I can bring you capital. And I'm so hungry for capital. Right?
Yeah.
I have a disastrous first raise. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm all ears. Yes.
Yeah. Bring me the money.
What are we going to do? He starts actually telling me about a couple of properties that he's getting sent. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. So what does our again, we were talking about this partnership, right?
Yeah.
I said, what does this partnership look like to you? What do you need me for?
Yeah.
If you're already getting lead flow and you're telling me you have capital, what do you need me for? And he's like, well, I don't have a full crew. You probably can come in with the crew. And I said, okay, so what does that look like?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, I have an NDA that I want to send you. And I have a JV, a joint venture partnership agreement that I want to send you. I said, I'm very familiar. Great. Send it to me. Let me take a look at them. Right.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It was a horrible contract.
Right.
It was basically like I had to pay him in perpetuity for things. Like if his lenders decided to, like if we decided to do a partnership on one property and it doesn't work out, I was supposed to pay him in perpetuity.
Yeah,
for his lenders.
Oh, wow.
Because he made the connection. And I was like, and because I'm doing speaking and I'm writing and all the things that I have planned, it basically said that he got a piece of any part of my company because we were now going to be partners, right? And I was like, oh, no, no, no.
Ooh,
Right.
yeah, you gotta read the fine
Oh,
print.
I read through this whole thing and I sent it to my current partner, right? And I said, hey, I want you to read this. And he reads it and he goes, what do you want to do? And I said, no, it's a horrible contract.
Yeah, no way.
And I said, I'm going to redline a bunch of stuff. I don't want to tell
Mm.
him no, because again, he's telling me he's got 100% financing for us. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? This
Yeah,
is
yeah,
before
yeah.
Aspire.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, yeah.
And he's like, well, go meet with him.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
Okay.
redline all these things in the contract
Yeah, yeah.
and I tell him, hey, I want to get on a phone call with you before we meet because I want to tell you why I redlined all these things. I don't want you to just think I redlined them, willy-nilly. Like there's a reason for these things. And for certain things, I need more specific language. For other things, we're too specific, So he's like, great, sure. It was like a Sunday. I was at an open house. So he goes, I can jump on in 15 minutes. Great. Calls me, he's drunk,
Oh, wow.
slurring his words. He's talking over me. He's not letting me talk. And I'm thinking, is this man drunk? And this is the first business call that we get on. Right. And I'm like, this isn't happening. Right. And I'm going, like, all my hopes and dreams of like, oh my gosh, we're going to have 100% financing are just going away. Right. And I'm thinking maybe he's sick. I'm trying to make excuses in my head. Right. And I'm like, I even tell him, I said, hey, are you feeling under the weather? Are you feeling okay? Did you take medication today? And he was like, no, why? And I said, you sound a little different than the last time we spoke. And he goes, oh, I've been drinking a little bit. I have a buddy's party and it's like a carne asada in the middle of the day. And I was like, ooh, okay. I said, well, you keep talking over me. I go, when I'm trying to explain stuff to you, why don't we just try this tomorrow? And he just goes, okay. I'm like, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's talk tomorrow. Right. And again, my partner's livid. He's like, how dare he call you drunk? And
Big red flag. Big red flag.
And he's like, and he disrespected you and he talked over you. And I said, but we need the capital. And I said, just relax. Let me meet with him tomorrow. I go, we're going to talk tomorrow. If he completely tries to gaslight me and tells me that it wasn't that big of a deal or whatever, then I'll know where his intentions are. But if he owns up to it and he apologizes, maybe he just misstepped. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. And he goes, again, I'm your partner. I'm doing whatever you want to do. So go for it. So the next day we talk. He apologizes profusely. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Right. And he's just like, I'm so sorry. That's not the way that I wanted to start this off and everything. So everything starts off really good in the conversation. And then he starts talking over me again when I'm trying to tell him what's happening with the contracts. No, you misunderstood that. That's not what that, no, this is what it means. And this is what I needed to say.
Yeah, it was really clear.
It's very clear.
Yeah.
And then I said, and I'm not signing an NDA. We're not
partners.
We're partners. And again, I'm in this industry. You're in this industry. We're not going to, or not an NDA. It was a non-compete. Sorry.
Oh, non-compete.
You wanted me to sign a non-compete.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've been in this industry for 7 years now. And you want me to do a non-compete against you? Like, what have you done? Right? Like, no, makes no sense. I'm not signing a non-compete for 5 years. Right. And he was like, well, those aren't even legal in California anyway. So then why'd you send it to me if you can't even uphold this in court? Right. And I said, these are the kind of thing. And then he kept saying, well, if your partner's not on board with any of these things, you and I can talk. And I'm like, what are you not understanding? I'm redlining these. I reviewed the contracts. And he just kept referring back to my partner. Well, if your partner's not on board. And I was like, I'm in a twilight zone. I'm like, who am I talking to that he doesn't understand that it's me, not my male partner?
Yeah.
And I was like, and he finally made a comment. He made one comment that I swear to this day that I'm like, this is one of the reasons that I've raised as much as I raised, because I keep this comment in the back of my head. He went, Sonia, I am opening the gates of heaven for you. I'm offering you 100% financing to be my partner. Do you know how many people would want to be in your shoes? And I went, you know what? I don't think this is going to work. Thank you for thinking of me. I said, but we're good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And he just was like, no, I mean, I think, and I said, no, we're good. And for about a week, he kept trying to, hey, so if things don't work out with your partner, you need to come and talk. It kept going back to like, he thought that it was my partner that was having an issue with the way he was behaving and his language and all this other stuff. And I just kept saying, if a schmuck like that can get 100% financing, there's no way in hell I can't.
Right?
I was like,
it was eye-opening for you.
No, that's not happening. I am raising as much capital as I can. And again, my partner was pretty upset. He was like, I can't believe he said that to you. I said, don't. You know what? We're taking this. I said, we are taking this because again, if now I know that the possibility is out there. I know that if that guy can raise capital, 100% financing, there's no way that I can.
Yeah, because you're a good person with a good heart.
Exactly. With a good
and you know what
investment.
you're doing.
Exactly. So
with a good deal.
I went,
with a fantastic deal.
and that's why I said, sometimes the pettiness will definitely fuel you because I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong, right? I was like,
yeah.
So, and again, I didn't know how. Aspire still wasn't in my view at all. And I was just like, okay, but
yes,
I'm going to go do this. Right.
Yeah. And we don't need to know how. I think so many people get tripped up on that. They don't know how to do something.
Right.
It's really who do you know that can help point you in the right direction to help solve your problems? You? Yeah.
I said, it's not about how or what, it's about who.
Who?
It always comes down to who. So because we all know real estate is a good investment. We all know that, real estate in Southern California specific, that, minus the crash, isn't going to lose value. Over time.
Yeah, I agree.
Ever. Right. Yeah. And it's like, and rents really aren't going anywhere. Like, so.
There's no place else to go in LA.
Right.
Like, there's no big plots of land all around.
And so that's why, all of those things combined, I said, I know that my business model makes sense. I've seen it be successful for my mentor. I've seen it be successful for myself. There's no way that I can't do this, Yeah. And, but that was a little fire under my ass. Like you wouldn't believe it. I was like, oh, hell no. Yeah. He did not just say that to me. And, but it was kind of like that with my mentor too. When my mentor said, good luck. Again, he didn't say it in a nasty way, but he said, you're on your own, good luck. I went, okay.
Yeah. And
challenge accepted.
and I think sometimes we forget on this journey that it's okay for people to say no to you and to communicate who they are. When people communicate who they are to you, believe them.
Exactly.
Do not think, oh, maybe they meant something else. No, that's who they are. Those are their values. That's how they run their business and their life, and that's how they are. And believe them, because if you get into business with them, it is gonna be crappy. There's gonna be problems down the road if you don't start listening to how people are.
Yeah. And even with the private money raising, I got to the point at the very beginning raising money where I actually started saying no to people because I didn't think they were in alignment with me. The way that they behave, the way that I'm all for somebody doing their due diligence and checking my credibility and doing all those things. The guy was just shady. He was going behind my back. He was doing all these things. And I was like, for $50,000. And I didn't even have his money yet. And he was doing all these things. And I was like, you know what? We're going to say no. And again, this was at the very beginning where my partner was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
We still need capital. Are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. We're not taking his money because I have a feeling that this is going to turn out really bad for us. And I said,
you have to listen.
Yeah. And I said, we'll find it somewhere else. I said, I'm going to say no to him. I'm going to respectfully tell him that we decline. I said, I could not sleep. And it was the morning he was supposed to wire. And I sent him a message and I said, please don't wire. We need to have a discussion. And and I just couldn't sleep. And I just knew that we shouldn't take his money.
And we have to listen and trust the process.
And like I said, it's scary, especially when you know that you need the funds, when it needs to happen for your business, you think, well, maybe I can make an exception this one time, right? And again, as women, I think we do this a lot. I think,
yeah, we justify. Excuse. I feel like we make excuses for people.
Because we want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We understand that things can be hard and there can be different factors and everything. But it's like you said, when people tell you who they are, trust them. and don't make excuses for them. And there's no judgment in it either. Like, I didn't think he was a bad guy for doing what he did.
Yeah.
I just think this is his nature. Do I want to be in business with him?
Right. And you have to pay attention to that. Yeah. There doesn't need to be a judgment to it. You don't even need to get attached or emotional about it.
No.
It's just what it is. And you just keep moving on.
Yeah. Because I just went, okay, I
Mhm.
don't want that kind of energy around my projects. I don't want that kind of energy for a year that we're going to be in this project with his money. Imagine what he's going to be like.
Yeah.
And I just went, no. And I made that judgment call. And again, luckily, I have people in my sphere who are like, we trust you. So whatever you need to do, let's do it. And I'm like, okay. So I made the call and said, at this time, this doesn't align with us. We appreciate you,
Yeah.
wanting to invest with us. And his buddy was actually my friend. And so his buddy was the one that was like, hey, I have a buddy who wants to invest.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do it together. But he's going to ask you a bunch of tough questions because he's in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We had an hour-long Zoom call where
Mm-hmm.
he asked me the toughest questions. I had no problem answering them,
Yeah.
and that still wasn't enough because what? Because I was a woman, because I was Latina, because he didn't think I had enough experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it never comes down to it's me.
No.
It's whatever somebody's biases is. And this goes back to destination.
Mhm.
When your client or your avatar has a destination and you're the guide, all you're doing is checking for alignment, right?
Mhm.
So all we're doing is seeing if this makes sense for them, not is it about me? So most of the time with investors, going back to private money lenders, most of the time with investors, they've been burned or know of a story where they've been burned and they no longer trust themselves to make this decision. So as a guide, my job is to make the decision process easy for them to be able to trust themselves again. But it has nothing to do, or not nothing, but very little to do with whether they trust me at the end of it.
Because they need to be able to look at the deal and say, yes, I can see that this makes sense.
Right. So,
And there is risk in investing in real estate. Like,
so that's why I have to empower them to understand what the risks are. That, where there's going to be risks, but here's the 5 different ways that I'm going to try to exit if something goes south.
yeah.
Here's the 3 different ways that we're going to take this down if we don't do it this way. All these different factors that I put into the presentation are to make them feel secure in their decision.
Yes.
Not for me to look good. And
Yeah.
that's where your ego has to get out of it. And you have to go, okay, who is my ideal? Who is the person who is going to invest in me or is already investing with me? Let me message heavily to that. And when you do that in a very specific way, and I still even just tweaked the last webinar based on more information that I learned, I was like, ooh, I like that. So I started doing even a little bit different. So that's the other part too, is don't get so caught up in that, oh, I perfected it. I've raised close to $4 million. I don't have to change anything. It's like, no, you constantly have to evolve and change and go, depending on the projects, we're looking at bigger projects now. We're looking at SRO projects where, we build 40 bedrooms, 40 baths on a duplex. We're looking at some really creative exits. Those are going to be different presentations. That's going to be a different animal. That may be a different investor. That might be a buy and hold investor. So I have to look at that avatar and say the messaging has to be different for those private money lenders.
Yes. And I feel like you're really helping solve the affordability housing problem that we're experiencing by taking down a single family and replacing it with units, I don't know.
Yeah, we get a little bit of a bad rap, obviously, as developers in the communities that we're going into, because I don't go in Class A or Class B neighborhoods if I can, unless there's a great deal. I focus on Class C neighborhoods that are bordering Class B neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So if you understand Class A, Class B, Class C, for Southern California, Class A would be like Beverly Hills, right? Class B would be kind of like Culver City, Studio City, right outside of that. And then Class C would be like midway or mid city and further into South LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can buy property on the borders of that, you get a better deal on the land, right? So you get much better deal than on land, but rents are almost comparable because it's proximity. People want to be close to the different things that make that a Class A and a Class B neighborhood. And so when you do that, then you're able to do both things. You get a property at a great value, you maximize the use of it, and now you force the valuation much higher than it would have been if you would have just taken on a duplex in South LA, right?
Yeah.
Because I've built it so large, and I've maximized it and it's on that border, then I
Yeah,
can
you're
actually,
adjacent to,
right.
yeah. I think that that's it's really smart to be adjacent
Mhm.
because people, that's what they want. They can't afford it, but they want it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it's a couple $100 less in rent,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
it's close enough. And it's a
Yeah.
nice new building. It's a great build. It's
Mm-hmm.
attractive. It looks good. You know, all those kind of things happen and people really, really gravitate towards it. So again, that's kind of been my winning formula for development the last 8 years. And I double down on it. Like I said, I hedge against the market with it. No matter what happens, if I
Mm-hmm.
had to keep them and I couldn't sell them,
You'll find.
they would be more than fine because I
Oh,
have
yeah.
at least $500,000 of equity built into the deal. That's after everybody gets paid. So knowing that I have that, then there's not a real, way that I can lose unless something catastrophic happened, which could. I mean, we saw the fires that just
Anything can
happened,
happen. Yeah.
right? But even then, we put investors we do a promissory note, a lien position, and we put them on our insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They have riders on our insurance because again, we want to protect our investors if anything were to happen to myself and my partner or the property. And I
Yeah.
think again, people talk really big and they have, oh, I've done this and I've done that, which they've never have, or I'm going to make X amount of dollars in this. And people want to believe and they want to trust, but they don't do their
Mm-hmm.
due diligence. And then that's how they get burned.
Yeah.
And they have no paper. They have nothing to paper them up.
Yeah. They are not protected.
Not protected.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that you have no recourse when you're not protected.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the saddest things that I've seen as I've been raising funds is the stories.
Mm-hmm.
I keep hearing the stories of, I thought I could trust this person, or I
Mm-hmm.
thought I could trust this operator because they came highly recommended, but
Mm-hmm.
they didn't take that one step further and go, okay, let me see what their projects actually look like. And a lot of stuff that's out of state, which I don't bash going out of state. I think the barrier of entry is lower, so I understand why people do it. But for me, it's hard not to go and physically see the project and see
Yes.
the things, unless you had an operator who was super transparent and said, here's my emails, and this is one of the things
FaceTime.
that I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
FaceTime, like we send out monthly
Updates.
and here's all the folders with all the social media posts and all the walkthroughs, and here's the latest permits that we got, and here, we do all of that again because integrity is important to me as a company, but I also understand that my investors need to see that transparency because they've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how scary is that?
Yeah. They need to know what's going on and be updated.
Yeah. So private money is definitely what we call a brick in the company. You have bricks which help build a company, and we have boulders which are challenges and obstacles that we need to address, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when I talk about the company, I always talk in terms of bricks and boulders. And our bricks are definitely private money and that flow, because you need to constantly have capital if you're going to scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if I was just doing 1 or 2 projects, then we would just finish them, exit, go on to the next ones. But taking down 10 projects in a year, you need a lot of capital, and hopefully trying to double that in this next year, then we need even more capital. So
that's what my next question for you before we wrap up is, what is on the horizon for you? Like what are big projects or things that you look forward to in the future?
Well, as we start exiting projects, again, finding investment vehicles myself is going to be priority.
Mm-hmm.
Investment vehicles that are not my own projects, because as entrepreneurs, again, we always think we have to go back. Everything has to go into our company. If you're structured the right way with self-directed and with, these different kind of accounts, then I'm able to actually make that money work outside of my company. So that's first and foremost. Setting up that structure in this next month is paramount, so that way there's an exit in 5 years. And again, we talked about the grind, right? And it's like, I can't just keep going and saying, I'm going to get 30 projects and then 40 and then 50. When does it end?
Yeah.
Right. And so going into the right business structure is called Rob's business structure. So going into the business structure now, my goal is to make my development company as valuable as possible. And then if I want to exit and a hedge fund wants to buy it, or if I want to leverage against it, then there's an exit.
Right.
That's not just about me grinding.
Yeah.
Right. So that's huge on the horizon for 2025 is setting up all the systems and processes with the structure appropriately. For the business itself, my goal last year was 20 and I got 10. This year it's 25. And so definitely looking to take down the kind of projects that we talked about during the podcast right now, but also looking at, again, what's on the horizon, what's on the market trends. These SROs that are single resident occupancy, like per room, pad split, co-living kind of model.
Yeah.
City of LA allows you to do huge duplexes nowhere else except for City of LA. So I'm really looking at maximizing those and holding those.
Yeah.
We held in this last year for the 10 projects, we're holding 20% of them. We decided to hold on to them to start building the portfolio.
That's smart.
And so for 2025, the goal is 50%. So to sell 50, keep 50. But really, again, we get to cherry pick. These are the projects that have the most equity, that make the most amount of money, that we've been able to force the most evaluation with. So that's going to be a bigger goal in 2025. But with these bigger projects, I'm also getting pitched a lot bigger. I've never done commercial, right? I always do 4 units and under for residential, but I've been getting pitched 10, 20, 50 units. So I'm starting to look at those and look at syndication as a possible structure.
Yeah.
I kind of like
capital.
I like raising capital per project because you don't have to have accredited investors, all those kind of things. You don't have to have a fund. But I'm always learning and open to the possibility. So that's definitely something that works. But having a larger build at the end of the year and something that I'm holding on to is one of the goals. But 20 projects, 25 projects, that's the goal for this year.
I love it. Well,
and being on at least 3 major stages.
That's good. I love that. That makes me so happy because that is so important because, I have 2 granddaughters, and when they grow up, I really want it to be a different environment for them. That I feel like the women that I'm meeting and networking and becoming friends with, we can help shape and change it. And in their lifetime, as they're growing up, the environment will be different for them. That's really my big why, right?
Yeah.
Because not just for them, but for that generation, right? And it does take time to create and change things. My last question to you is my show is called Born to Be Brave. I feel like you were born to be brave. I feel like you're a good fit for the show, but I have a saying that I live by called "Miracles are my normal," and everything's always working out for me. That's my life mantra. Have you seen a miracle in your life?
I've seen a ton of miracles in my life. I think you live by a philosophy of everything's a miracle or nothing's a miracle. And every day, like, I ground myself in gratitude. I woke up, I have a roof over my head. I had all the little things that we constantly take for granted. I'm like, these things are miraculous.
They are.
They are completely miraculous. When I think of some of the situations that I've been in, some of the financial hardships, going through and losing both my parents, all those kind of things. When you go through those things and you go, everything's a miracle, everything that you got. And when something doesn't work out, I call it divine delays. And so it wasn't supposed to at that time for whatever reason.
I love
divinely delayed. So when something doesn't work, it's not because it wasn't supposed to and it's not for you. It's because at this time it's divinely delayed for whatever reason. And again, you have to have a faith in yourself and in God that things are going to work out. So I ground myself in gratitude. Miracles are a constant.
I love that. Yeah. And gratitude for what we have is where we see the miracles, because waking up today and having breath of life, that's a miracle, right? Not everyone woke up today. Divine delays, because part of my saying is miracles are my normal and everything's working out for me, even when it's not working out for you. It is working out for you. We don't even know all the things that we avoided by things not working out for us, right?
Yeah. I'm telling you, those divine delays are the things that, when I don't get somewhere where I'm supposed to, when all the things I'm like, thank goodness, because maybe I was avoiding
something that we don't even know what it was.
And avoiding people and avoiding situations.
Yeah.
All of it is for our good. So I am completely on the same page with you when it comes to that.
Where can people find you?
So where can they find me? Most of my social media, So on all my social media, I go by multi-unit queen. So if that's completely self-proclaimed, by the way.
I love it.
Nobody gave me the moniker. I was like, you know what?
I love it.
So multifamily was taken. So multi-unit, because again, it may not be family. Who knows what the future
Yeah.
holds? It may be mixed use. It may be. I know it's going to be in the real estate space, but multi-unit queen on all social media. So on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, if it's still around, and any future, platform that comes along, that's where you're going to be able to find me.
Yeah, and we'll post in the comment in the link in the show notes where to find her. John's a pro at that. What didn't we talk about that you feel like maybe you would like to share with our audience before we wrap it up? Is there something that you would love to share that you didn't share that you would love to share?
I think again, as experienced as a woman in a male dominated space, I think we've spoken about obviously our experiences and how we've come up and the challenges we've overcome. And I hope that has inspired someone to say, if she can, I can. And that's the underline of almost everything that I do now. Is I don't always consciously do it. I do it because it's in my nature to do it and move forward. But when I hear the feedback from people, from women that said, because I saw you present at this event, because I saw you do these things, I felt like, if she does, I can. And I think that's the message that I want everyone to take away from it, male or female, but particularly my ladies, is if we can, you can. And you do it regardless of whether you feel like it, whether you are in the mood for it, because we have a greater purpose for what we do. And never forget that.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, if you can, if you can, they can.
I can. Exactly.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for joining us and sharing your heart with us today and your energy and your love for life. I just loved it. I'm so glad that I just listened to that voice in my head. You should have her on your show as soon as possible. That's the thought when I met you. Like when
I'm so grateful that you had that thought. Like I said, I was like, oh yes, of course, yes.
Yeah.
I jumped at the opportunity.
So I'm so excited. So remember, you were born to be brave. Take that imperfect action. Just start moving forward. As you can see from Sonia, she literally had, like everyone who's ever done anything important, lots of ups and downs and lots of opportunity. I call them opportunities to grow. Pain is a powerful teacher, but when you pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot, I promise you it's the right people will show up in your life to help you. And as long as you're vulnerable and keep sharing with people that what you need, what is the next thing you need and how can you solve their problem, find out what they need, that it will all work out for you. That is how it works. And this is not your practice life. That's my other life saying. This is your one shot. You might not wake up tomorrow. So start doing what you love and what brings you more joy. So thanks for joining us. Please like and subscribe to the program. And thanks for being on. And I'm telling you right now, you guys follow this cutie pie. She's awesome. She's a dynamo. She's a powerhouse. And if you have money to deploy, hop on a webinar with her.
Exactly.
Right? LA is definitely a place that has a high rate of return because the money's there, the value.
The opportunities here.
Yeah,
for sure.
the opportunities here, and we have appreciation like no other marketplace here. So anyway, thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.